Saturday View on Midlands 103. With thanks to Lumclean Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcleanEnergy.com. Have your say. Call 0818 300 103. Text or WhatsApp your Saturday View to 083 3010 103.
Hello and a very good morning to you all. Saturday View is out and about for the first time in its history, and we are here today outside Offaly Volunteer Centre in Bury Quay in Tullamore. We have a lovely coffee dock set up beside us here, so if you're in the Tullamore or around the area, drop down, say hello, call by us as well, and discover some of the fantastic work that has been done by Offaly Volunteer Centre. And today's outside broadcast marks the end of National Volunteer Week 2024. So throughout the course of this morning's show, we're going to hear about the unbelievable work that's been done on a voluntary basis right across our communities. It touches pretty much every aspect of our lives, and we'll bring you some of the people who are making a real difference in our community throughout the morning. And as I say, I'm going to put a call out to anybody that's listening there right across the Midlands. If there's a voluntary organisation that you're involved with, if you volunteer with an organisation, if you've benefited from the work of a voluntary organisation, drop me a text or a WhatsApp message 083 3010 103. Let me know, and we'd like to give you a shout out on the show this morning as well. The theme of National Volunteering Week 2024 is Uniquely Us. So today we're going to celebrate the volunteers and the voluntary organisations that are doing that phenomenal work right across our community. We have a load of guests lined up for you, so throughout the morning you're going to hear from the community first responders, and again they bring some statistics with them this morning that really are an eye-opener. We'll also hear from the Offaly Irish Wheelchair Association and from other people involved, particularly here with Offaly Volunteer Centre. So no better place to start than exactly with that. I'm delighted to be joined in our broadcaster by Deirdre Fox, the manager of Offaly Volunteer Centre. Very good morning, Deirdre.
Good morning, Ronan, and we're delighted to be part of your history. This is your first outing in the community, and we can guarantee you it won't be the last. Great setup here down on Bury Quay outside our offices, and yes, please do come down for coffee on the quays. We're delighted to have had a super week where we met volunteers from all over the county. We started off on Monday by launching the first Tullamore Ukrainian Society, our association, and we also launched Offaly Africa Day, which is happening on June the 1st, all voluntary, and it was a super evening here on in the premises here in Sunyashnik on the quays here in Tullamore.
The theme of this week, I say, is Uniquely Us. Talk us a bit more about that as well, because there's something about volunteering that really is, there's something special about it too. So what makes it unique?
Absolutely. So, you just have to every single organisation that is registered with us give 110% of their time in a voluntary capacity. And we are so happy to have had that opportunity to celebrate this week. But in fact, we like to celebrate it as often as we can, and we like to acknowledge all our volunteers as often as we can. We have organisations, you mentioned the community first responders, so we have them in Edenderry, we have them in Tullamore, we have IWA, Skate, Tullamore. We have Docus, which has a county brief, and I think they extend into other counties, to be fair. Power for Good and Offaly Hospice both have a huge presence in the county. Bar festivals in the south of the county, Moneygall Development, then you have Forban and all the volunteers that are in Clara. And we can't just associate them with with urban centres, but there is a huge voluntary I think maybe it's a heritage throughout Offaly in the rural areas also. So as I said, they're all unique. The organisations support each other. Last night we had an excellent gathering of the community first responders from Ballyford, Edenderry, Dangan, Tullamore and Tubber. And Can't Leave Road out. And I was a bit, saying, gosh, these people have never come together before. What's it going to be like? And, will I have to be almost interviewing them to get information? Well, I left them at 10:30, and one of the gentlemen from Tullamore, who you'll be hearing from later on, didn't get to leave until 11:30. So they had so much information that they wanted to share with each other, because each of the centres are at a very different level, and that was very interesting. We had a group came and joined us in the cabin in Edenderry on Thursday night, and we took part in an event which was committee skills. So it is very important that we support the organisations very much so by offering free placement and referral service. We offer guidance and support in developing the volunteer roles. We offer guidance and support in developing policies, which are extremely important, because as volunteers you can be quite exposed if you don't have policies to protect yourself and your organisation and the work you do. A best practice is also very important while involving organisations that involve volunteers. And in Offaly, we provide a Garda vetting service to those organisations who don't have access to their own designated Garda vetting officer. So we're very happy to offer that to organisations. Now, we also offer service to volunteers. I suppose we consider ourselves a bit like a marriage bureau. So we identify, the organisations identify what they want, we identify the volunteer, and we try and marry the two. Because for us, a volunteer experience has to be a good experience, because if it's something that you're not comfortable with, or it's something that you're not happy in, then you're not going to give it the full 100%.
Is your typical volunteer then somebody who is drawn to an organisation because of maybe personal experience, or is it that they're placed with an organisation and should come into an organisation like Offaly Volunteer Centre?
Well, do you know that sometimes we have a long list on our iVol platform, and sometimes people really don't know what they want to do. So it might take coming in to chat with us for them to say, actually, yeah, I would like to do that. Now, for the community first responders, that is quite specific. And I know you're going to hear from IWA later on also, and understand why people are taking part in the organisations they do. But for us, sometimes it is an exploratory journey with a volunteer. And they say, I did work in that, or I'm retired now and I would like to give some more time back. We recruited quite a few English teachers for the Lions programme when they run the English classes here for our Ukrainians that arrived into our community. And we also work with other migrant groups. So it's such a varied process, if you like, but it is very important that the volunteer has to have a good experience. But
even this morning, just before we came on air, there's a little snapshot of how kind of circular it can be too, because I was speaking to a man called Alexander who has been growing the flowers that are growing in the flower beds and hanging baskets, not just here but around the town as well. So you mentioned about getting English teachers in to help people who maybe come from Ukraine. To see that level of giving back, it must be very fulfilling.
Well, for us, we started a garden project down at the National Learning Network as a collaboration. And then what actually happened was we connected with Shane Murray in Tullamore Tidy Towns. And I know that you've had them on already the last few weeks. And then we decided, we can actually grow the flowers in the polytunnel for the hanging baskets. So that is a project that the volunteers from Ukraine have taken on. They did the planters from the Kilbeggan Bridge down as far as Spar. Unfortunately, 2 days later when they went to water them, not everybody was happy with the planting and had uprooted some of them, but they duly put them back in, and we're very happy to be part of Tullamore Tidy Towns. And they meet here every Wednesday evening, and there's a massive crew. Language isn't a barrier, I can tell you that right now when it comes to volunteering. And there's great atmosphere around the town here on a Wednesday evening when everybody's out with Tullamore Tidy Towns.
But equally so, a person's physical ability is not a barrier. There really is a volunteering opportunity for everybody.
There is a volunteer opportunity for everybody. So when we get an opportunity raised by an organisation, sometimes it actually can be from the volunteer's own home, or sometimes they can actually travel as far as they want to go to carry out any volunteer opportunity. So there is absolutely no barriers as far as we're concerned to volunteering.
And with pretty much any organisation that we all may be in touch with, be it a sporting organisation, a charity group, and any sort of voluntary group, there's always that thing of it's very, very hard to get people. Are you disproving that? And has COVID changed that? Has COVID pulled people away from volunteering, or has it actually made people more aware of the need to do so?
Well, would you believe Offaly Volunteer Centre became an independent company in 2020, which was really near the tail end of COVID, and I was appointed as the manager in 21. And we actually devised a programme called Safely Going Back to Volunteering. What I will say is that if an organisation is specific about what the role is, then you will get a volunteer, because no volunteer wants to just turn up and not have a specific task. So we found that we have no problem recruiting volunteers. We really don't. What I will say to you also is that there are a number of industries in the Tullamore area, and the employees actually give of their time. So we have Steris, Cardinal Health, Zotas. They have been very much to the fore when we've been organising anything. We're also very lucky that in Steris we have the chairperson of the Tullamore Rugby Club, and they have been absolutely phenomenal when it comes to supporting anything that we want to do, whether it's premises, whether it's a cookery programme for people who have been displaced. There are no barriers if you ask. And if you're clear on the task.
But that also speaks to, lots of big companies now that have their CSR policies, they're looking at
correct.
what they can do to give back.
Yeah.
And probably sometimes as a kind of a scepticism that, it says that on a big plaque on the wall, but are they actually doing it? But you're clearly seeing that in action around Tullamore.
The community social response by companies in Tullamore, 3 of the companies that we work with, and there's a 4th company who actually supports us, and that's DNS Hardware. They support us in our salaries here with the company in Offaly Volunteer Centre, and whatever we ask, we receive. And if we ask and they can't help us, then they might say, well, look, we can't help you this time, but we know where you can get the support. And we have had some of the volunteers coming on their own time, not just as part of their corporate social response.
Fantastic,
so that's encouraging, to say the least.
No. Well, no better time now to go and meet one of the many volunteers that is doing some fantastic work in the local community. Jean Gill is from the Offaly Irish Wheelchair Association. A very good morning, Jean.
Good morning, Ronan.
Jean, I suppose tell us briefly about the Offaly IWA and the types of volunteers that are in your group.
Well, first of all, I'll just clear up one little thing that I didn't know at the start, that there are 2 wings to the Wheelchair Association. There's the Offaly branch, which is the voluntary association of which I'm part, and then there's the resource centre out in Balnagar. When I first came in touch with the Offaly branch, I didn't realise that the 2 were separate really, and work separately, but work with the same people very often. The voluntary branch, I got co-opted into it. I was a very reluctant volunteer. I thought I had enough on hands. But when Sister Veronica put her hooks in you, you didn't say no. And I have to say it's the best thing I ever did. It's been a tremendous time. As volunteers, we did a holiday. We do an annual party. There's a mass run each week, and a few trips to Knock during the year as well. And now since COVID, we haven't holiday. That's a change. We just haven't. We'd need younger volunteers who would be able to do that. Also, hotel prices have become so exorbitant. It's questionable whether we will get back to that. But we've been doing small groups instead, bringing out maybe a group of older ladies for lunch, and they just absolutely, that's what makes volunteering so special. It's the joy you see on somebody's face because you've brought them out of their house just for a meal, just for lunch.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing,
And it could be a small part of the volunteers' week, but it could be the huge aspect of that person's week.
Absolutely, yeah. And we brought a group out just before Christmas. Now, some of those ladies live on their own. They don't have... they wouldn't really have a Christmas celebration as such. And we just brought a small group to the court, and we had Christmas crackers and a little gift each. And, well, it was just amazing, They were so thrilled. But as volunteers then, the training we have to do, because we run a bus, we have to do clamping. And we're supposed to do manual handling as well, although we don't actually do much in the way of manual handling. The bus drivers, of course, have to have the D licence and have to be on the insurance, have each year. And some of our drivers are getting a little bit older every year. They're a little bit nervous, and the doctor will say, "No, I think you've done enough," And we need our bus drivers. We had 6 bus drivers at one stage, which meant that they only did the mass run once in 6 weeks, which was quite good. But we're down to 3 now, so they have to do it every 3 weeks. But they're marvellous drivers, and they're so dedicated, and they too, like the rest of us, love the members and have great crack with them.
You mentioned how you felt you had enough on your plate, but yet you find yourself as a volunteer. What was that like? How did you find that room in your schedule, and what has it been like, say, incorporating that bit of work into your normal week?
Well, at this first AGM of the Offaly branch that I went to, I said, no, I can't do it. I'm too busy. There's no way. And somebody then said, well, it's just one meeting a month. And I fell for it.
You've also made a great plug to recruit 3 new drivers.
Yeah.
So take the opportunity when you get it.
And I was going to lead to that next question too. That what do you think would attract people to go, actually, there's an organisation I should take a look at? And you're saying how the sense of kind of the give back for people, for volunteers, of doing that great work in the community, the difference it makes on people's lives. What do you think would entice somebody to go, do you know what, that's something I want in on as well?
Yeah,
Seems it's just one meeting a month.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and where was it going there?
We're talking about the drivers, how to recruit
the drivers. Yeah. Well, I know the drivers that we have. They just, they love to do it, and the drivers we've had in the past they give years. We had wonderful drivers who've given years of voluntary work. It's Saturday evening. It's from 5:00 to 8, really. By the time they get the bus, do the run around town, and that's even at the moment most of the people are living in the same area, so it's an easier run. So sometimes it has been later than that. So people need to take into consideration, if I can really give these times. Oh, I know you were asking me earlier, how did I feel, because thought I was so busy anyway. When you see the joy on other people's faces, you feel it's all worthwhile, and it's so little. I mean, I feel so humbled to be able to do what we do. One of the people we've needed on our committee was a secretary. I was chairperson for years, which was easy enough, but couldn't just nail down. We had a wonderful secretary for years, but then she retired, and we found it difficult to get a secretary. So I ended up doing I'm secretary now for my sins, and and that's definitely that is the task that is probably the busiest. Yeah. But when it has to be done, you do it, and
you find the time.
Absolutely, as well. But I think a lovely testimonial there about being a volunteer, and when you see the joy it brings people to, and ultimately, Deirdre, that's what National Volunteer Week is all about.
That is exactly what National Volunteering Week is all about. It's about engaging people with, to come together and to engage with each other. And last night was absolutely mind blowing, because the enthusiasm in the room was just phenomenal. The way they spoke about what they did. Now, all of their work is quite confidential, but they spoke about some of the people that they helped, and what they do is they go to an emergency and they wait for the ambulance to come, and they're quite modest in what their capacity is, but just for them to meet with each other from across the county, we're hoping, and they were encouraging us to keep a network going of same organisations. It's the same with tidy towns, that some might be just at a starting stage, some might be struggling. So we're actually proposing to have a workshop in October with Volunteer Ireland, and it will be for organisations, and it will be to learn ways in which to engage volunteers. But I would always say that the best way to engage a volunteer is to know what you want that volunteer to do. Yeah. And then if you're specific, people will come forward. But it is sheer joy. And I have been a volunteer all my life, and we're going to hear from other volunteers today. And our board are volunteers. Our entire board are volunteers that were recruited through a process for geographical location and because of their skills. So I'm not sure how joyous they are at coming into a board meeting every month, but for me, they are the backbone of our organisation, and they offer huge support. And they also give an insight. You know, if we make a proposal, they will come at us from their perspective as volunteers, and that is extremely important.
Well, we're going to meet some of those volunteers after a quick break, and some of the statistics they've handed me, particularly as community first responders, when you look at them on paper, you kind of go, wow, and you go, what if those organisations weren't around, the impact that would have on people's health and people's lives. So we're going to meet some of those people after this quick break. Right now in Tullamore it is 13 degrees.
Saturday View on Midlands 103 with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. lumcloonenergy.com.
The van is rocking. We've just got back in there. A couple of people ran out for a quick Neil Feary's given us a bit of a shake there as well. Thanks, Neil, much appreciated. But we're outside Offaly Volunteer Centre in Key for coffee on the quays this morning, celebrating National Volunteering Week 2024. Before the break there, you heard from Deirdre Fox, the manager of Offaly Volunteer Centre. Deirdre is here with me still, and also you heard from Jean Gill there, and speaking about what the joy that being a volunteer brings into somebody's lives. And particularly, as Jean mentioned, sometimes you see your schedule is already jam-packed and you can't do any more, and maybe it is just a monthly meeting, but it's often more than that. But again, the joy and the sense of fulfilment that brings people, not just the volunteer of course, but the very people they are volunteering with. But volunteering touches every aspect of our community, right down into our own health and indeed life-saving stuff. And there are community first responder groups across the County Offaly too, and right across the Midlands. And they'd like to be joined in a minute now by MJ Smith and John Lloyd, and they got you to talk primarily about Eden Derry community first responders. And as Deirdre mentioned there was a meeting of groups of similar groupings from Offaly last night, and to bring them together to share ideas and to collaborate and look at really how that service can grow. But when it comes down to it, the guys have shared some statistics with me just before we came on air, and they're quite staggering actually when you see the positive intervention these groups have had. Very good morning, MJ and John.
Good morning.
I suppose, MJ, you're going to take us maybe through some of those outlined stats for Eden Derry CFR and just talk about the work you actually do.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, we have over 30 volunteers that are involved in the first responders in Eden Derry. And just in relation to a few stats, in relation to last year, we had 17 cardiac arrests, 104 chest pain calls, 23 stroke and 2 choking calls. And say for each of those calls, the minimum that goes out is 2 volunteers. And they give up their time. We give up our time 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week. The way it works is we receive texts to say what the call is, and depending on what comes in, it could be 2-3 volunteers that have to go any time at any hour of the day.
So obviously response time is critical for a group like yourselves too, especially when it's slightly more rural and not near some of the bigger towns.
Yes, exactly. And like in fairness, in relation to our group, when we receive the call, we have a WhatsApp group, and within a minute you will see the first 3 volunteers that are able to respond. And with the pressure that our ambulance service are under at the minute, our first responders are hoping to get into a call within the first 5 minutes of that call coming in. Brilliant. And that's not only in Eden Derry, that's in Dangan and that's in Road as well. It's branches that we would have reached out to as well.
Wow, that's phenomenal. 5 minutes is huge again, is in a rural area too. So the types of volunteers that you have on board, what type of person and what kind of skill set have they?
The skill set is simple. It's quite simply, it's what you want to do, It's the time that you want to give up. Our training is open to everyone, so it is. And we love to see new faces coming in, because if you learn how to use a defibrillator, you learn to save a life. And not only that, it's such a big thing within communities. And say one thing that we're always trying to do is we're always trying to teach new people, new groups, And I heard outside in relation to GA clubs having defibrillators outside, and you know what, that is absolutely brilliant. But the one thing that we're trying to reach out to, and this is to every club within areas, and that's all throughout Offaly, is that, okay, it's grand to have a defibrillator on a wall, let's teach people how to use it.
Yeah, I was actually at under 12 hurling match yesterday evening just outside Tullamore, and there was one on the wall of the stand behind us, and again I suppose great to see, but to make sure people know how to use that too. But as you said, your kind of group, you're spreading now, you're beginning to look at groups outside of the greater Eden Derry area as well, and that's now coming towards Tullamore, John, and you're involved in that side of things.
Yeah, I'm part of the other Malton town, and that's where we decided to kind of try and get that group up, because there is no group in town. And we're pushing for it, and from our perspective we have a wide range of medical experience, going from the basically first aiders right up to paramedics and advanced paramedics, and even clinical nurses involved with it. So we get a lot of feedback from the likes of the paramedics. We even have one of our members is an ED nurse, and she can give us from the inside, from when the patient arrives in, what happens there and all that. So we get a good broad base on that. You know, even up to yesterday, we had a couple of members out doing a first aid course, and they had a stroke victim, and helped to get the person ready, and the ambulance service came in, and the ambulance service, in fairness to them, helped them and showed them what happens inside their ambulances, because there was a few members, and they had Tom, Martin and Sarah was out there, and they've done a great job helping that person.
Yeah.
And that was as simple just from a training course. Was
that a key thing for you, that being able to respond as a community in as rapid a time as possible?
Yeah, as a cardiac arrest patient and stroke patient, time is vital. Minutes is or seconds is minutes and days on a person's life. So from a stroke victim, the quicker you get to them, the better. The cardiac arrest, same things, the quicker you start CPR. And it's important for someone, if someone sees someone even on the street, is to know just to do CPR. No bad CPR is or any CPR is good CPR. You can't be bad. So you can help them along the way, and that couple of minutes of someone starting straight away can often save that person's life, because it's vital.
And MJ was mentioning those defibrillators, and Deirdre, you said even last night a kind of a takeaway from that meeting of the groups was to look at actually mapping.
So Offaly Volunteer Centre brought the groups together last night, and we have made a commitment to map the defibs in the Tullamore electoral area, in collaboration, of course, with John and his team. And we are also going to support the establishment of a network of the community first responders in the county, and it will be a very simple affair, really. It won't be something that we will be expecting people to attend a meeting on a regular basis, but what we will do is we will be the exchange for information. Sometimes it is good to meet people and have a debriefing if it's a specific task that somebody had to undergo, and most importantly, from our perspective in Offaly Volunteer Centre, acknowledgement of the work that has gone in, and wherever we can support the groups throughout the county, we will do that. Apart from the Garda vetting that we carry out, we also are offering our services in Offaly Volunteer Centre for whatever, as I said, information exchange, or whatever is required to establish the one in Tullamore as soon as possible, I suppose. And I do think that the emphasis that both these gentlemen have put on being part of the community first responders is training, that there is a huge element of training, that it's not just you have got this job now and you can go out and do it. There's a huge amount of training. And last night John spoke quite a bit about the absolute urgency in maintaining the equipment, ensuring that the paddles are in date, ensuring that the batteries are.
Yeah, it's so vital to have that. There's nothing as bad as you getting to an AD and the batteries is flat, and it has happened, and we have seen it. So I know I'm heavily involved with maintaining the ambulance service defib, so that's where I'm looking at from a maintenance point. It's so vital, because if you don't have it.
And is something like that a physical check, or is it now?
It's just a physical check. Just go out and look at it. It tells you if the battery's in date. Open up the package. It'll turn on. Go through its sequence checks. Turn it off. Check the pads. Make sure the pads are not in date. Because if the pads are not in date, it might not shock the patient.
Yeah.
And that is vital. So it's very, very important to have that part of it.
And I think it's important as well, because Irene Bergen was very clear on what you do in your area, because there's Ballyfour, There's Edenderry
Ballyfour,
Road and
Edenderry
Dangan.
Road and Dangan.
So what do you do with your...
In relation to our defibrillators, our first responders, we do our checks a minimum of once a month, and that's to make sure that everything is in date, which in fairness they always are. We have over 24 defibrillators within the area, and just for those people in Edenderry, always remember the defibrillators are not owned to anyone, they're there for the community, and it's written quite clearly on the box. C0 opens the box whenever you need that defibrillator. Also, in relation to the defibrillator, there's a device on it that quite simply it tells us where the defibrillator goes, and if we see that defibrillator has gone to X, Y or Z, I guarantee you there would be a responder there as well. We would follow the defibrillator.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that you have so one person in your group is responsible for 2 defibrillators, and
Yes.
to check them monthly. I think that is a fantastic way to do it.
When we check them monthly, we check the battery life, we check the pads, we make sure, say when a first responder, if they get a call, that if they're in the rush, there's gloves, there's anything and everything that's needed for that call. And
Now, the interesting part of all of that is, where does the funding come to replace the paddles, and where does the funding come to ensure that the batteries are in order? So there's a huge amount of fundraising goes into all of this, and the lads from Tubber now were very clear. They have a nice little place, as the fella said, it's the well of giving. So they do a lot of their fundraising over around the well and moat, but they said that it's not a hard sell.
Yeah. And is it all typically privately raised funds then?
Well, I suppose there would be donations. I think that you experience that where people, families who have had a loved one that was revived, they are very forthcoming in giving a contribution, and that's fantastic. But I do think that while we are talking about the defibrillators, we're talking about the training, we're talking about the time, there's a huge element of fundraising. And that is, for me, that is huge. So, for all the organisations that are voluntary, they have to fundraise.
Yeah, and there's even a part of it there, I say, that as the work that the volunteers like John and MJ do as first responders is critical. That's what you want these guys and these people doing, using that key skill set they have, as opposed to maybe the more administrative stuff. It sounds like there should almost be a national body to oversee all the defibrillators and make sure there's no issues with funding, batteries, and that they're all maintained as well, and allow these people to do the work that you do. What would you agree with that, MJ?
Yeah, I would, but the one thing I will say is, and I know this from, say, the responders in Edenderry Road and Dangan, everything has to take a personal touch. You have to remember, when you go into a person's home, remember they're under pressure, and when they see a body like ourselves going in, and in fairness I have to say we have volunteers that would have answered over 100 calls, and when you see that person coming in, that's a reassurance. And it's not a case of everything's going to be 100% order here, things happen, but when you see a body's there that's there to help, and that's the most important thing in relation to volunteerism. And that doesn't matter whether you're a coach in football, in rugby, in soccer, if you're there to help a person, that's what it's all about. And it's a reassurance for that person that you're helping. If a person is suffering from a heart attack and they see someone coming in and they know, okay, this person knows what they're doing, that is a massive help. And it's a reassurance, which is most important.
How does a community first responder group link in, say, then with the health service or with like the National Ambulance Service too? Like, there's obviously communications and collaboration.
Okay, well look, the way it works is when a 999 call comes in relation to a heart attack, stroke, choking, we get a text. And we get an air code of where this is happening, and we ring NAS, which is the National Ambulance Service. We find out the information. We make sure there is no COVID in the house, and then we go and respond. We send our own text into our own group to basically say MJ is going to this call, or anyone is going to that call, and then there'll be 2, maybe 3, up to 4 people at times that's needed responding to that call. But we're constantly in contact with the National Ambulance Service, same as well with Edenderry Fire Brigade. Like, if it's a big call, it could be a busy little room. And the best way I can say it is everyone is there to help that person that's in need. And it's the person that's in need is the most important person in that room.
And I'm sure, like all groups, you'll welcome more people to volunteer as well. What would you say to people who might be considering it? And a bit like Jean Gill said earlier, maybe thinking, I don't know whether I have time. What would you say to them?
Do you know what? I actually think this is quite simple. If you have an hour or two available that you're able to make a training. We train twice a month, Wednesdays at 8 o'clock in the Church of Ireland Hall in Eatonderry. And our group is not a closed group. We're open to everyone. And as I said to the start, we're also providing training to groups as well for free, because quite simply, to save a life, we're not looking for anything. It's just quite simply to let people be aware, let people know where the defibrillators are. If you check our Facebook page, you'll see that we have a map of where all our defibrillators are in Eatonderry, Dangan, Ballyfour Road, all the surrounding areas. And it's just quite simply, I guarantee you, when it comes to that call that you have to make and you're able to do something, nothing will take that feeling away to say that you're able to help someone. So it is absolutely not. Yeah,
it's an absolute credit to you as well. John, I suppose you'll put a similar call out for people then looking to get involved in the Tullamore area.
Yeah, we have a similar way. Again, we train every Wednesday night down beside TEF in Burlington Business Park. So we're as part of the Tullamore, we're always welcoming new members. Anyone who wants to do it, they can come in, just do it part of the CFR. If they can come in and they can get the basic levels, and they can also go up to an EMT level if they want. And all that training is provided again free within the Order of Malta. And we have a great team of teaching staff there, like that are constantly looking for new people and encouragement. The encouragement I got over the last 10 years has been second to none, and I really, really enjoy it from doing the likes of Tullamore shows or some of the big events around the town here, and that is actually excellent. And, you know, we've had some other transfers that we've done over the time that have also been life-changing. You know, you get different people going and helping out different people, and the sense of what I would say, you'd be proud to say you've been part of that to help that person.
No, it's phenomenal, and I think a lot of people listening will be really sitting up and listening and getting their eyes and ears open by that this morning to hear that work that's done as well. Look, I think from everybody, thank you so much for what you do, and can you do that? And if you are out there and you can add to that and lend to that, please do. But John Lloyd and MJ Smith, thank you so much for joining us here out at Offaly Volunteer Centre this morning, and your texts are flying in there as well. People are asking, saying thanks for highlighting the work that volunteers are doing, particularly Jean and her volunteers in the wheelchairs branch, Offaly branch of the Wheelchair Association there. Other people texting in saying, could we make a shout out to all the Meals on Wheels voluntary drivers in North Offaly Development. Lots of people kind of getting in touch, kind of paying tribute to the great work that volunteers and voluntary organisations are doing right across our community as well. Time now for a short break. After that, you're going to meet more volunteers and hear more about the great work that Offaly Volunteer Centre is doing.
Saturday View on Midlands 103, with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcloonEnergy.com.
And we're coming back to you live from outside Offaly Volunteer Centre. The coffee is flowing from the little coffee hut here beside us. Loads of people gathered around, plenty of celebration going on, and lots of you texting in as well. Just paying tribute and to the great work that volunteers and voluntary organisations are doing right across our communities, across Offaly, across Laois and across Westmeath. Deirdre Fox, the manager of Offaly Volunteer Centre, is still with me here, as is Dennis Egan, another member of the committee. And Deirdre, I suppose, what a fantastic insight from John and MJ there, community first responders, really again painting that picture of the work that's been done.
Absolutely outstanding. And not just that, but the group that were there last night, the two lads that came in from Tubber and the women that were there from Eatonderry, Ballyfour and Dangan, and the lads from Road, just to hear their stories. And as I said, it is a very confidential service and they never spoke about anyone, but their eyes lit up when they spoke about a life that they have saved, and they know why they're involved in the community first responders. But that goes right across the board with any volunteer that has a successful, like the lads planting the flowers, they were so proud. The garden that has been produced down in the town yard, the Burr festivals, all of those, the lads down in Moneygall, they do huge work. Why? because it enriches their community, but they get more from what they give.
I think we're getting a real snapshot of the different organisations. Even somebody's texting as well to pay tribute to the work that things like the Tullamore Show do. Again,
incredible,
massive volunteer-led organisations and achieving phenomenal stuff too. But of course, all this can't happen without a board and people to oversee it as well. And Dennis, you're very much part of the board here at Offaly Volunteer Centre.
I am indeed, Ronan. I became involved with Offaly Volunteer Centre about 2 years ago. I retired from my other job. I was the CEO of a regulatory body in September 21, and I had an opportunity to come on board the finance committee here. I'm an accountant as well, and it's amazing the work they do, and they do incredible work in the whole Offaly Midlands area. And I'm generally down about once or twice a month with Deirdre in the volunteer centre, and it's incredible the number of people that are coming in and out, volunteers from different organisations in the county. And it's also one of the things it's great to see is the actual support that head office here or central office in Tullamore provide for volunteering organisations in the county. Like, they provide great backup support. There was just one particular scheme I remember there very recently. I think it was no logo, or come to us go or whatever it was.
No logo, no go-go.
No logo, no go-go. But like Offaly Volunteer Centre was prepared to work with the organisations to develop logos to help them. And there's huge support. As I know there's been different meetings around the county where on committee structures, finance, all that sort of stuff, all provided by Offaly Volunteer Centre. And it's just a number of one of the many volunteer centres. Obviously in each county there is a volunteer centre, but as I said, my main involvement is with Offaly Volunteer Centre on the finance, but I'm involved in one or two other voluntary organisations outside the county. One in particular, the Family Addiction Support Network up in Dundalk, which also does magnificent work. But that's also a snapshot of what volunteerism means to communities in the country and the great work that they do.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Of course, I think it's hot off the press last night, Deirdre. Your actual annual report 2023 has just been released here.
We're launching our annual report. Behind us here, coffee on the keys this morning, and we also have our strategic plan 2024 to 2027. I think it's also quite important to say, in fairness, Dennis does travel to us from Kildare, but he's a Ferban man, so his roots are very much rooted in Offaly. But he has also offered support to groups in south of the county, and we often feel sometimes as part of our organisation that there are areas, pockets that we don't reach, but thanks to Dennis we've established a great link with Moneygall, so that's as far south as we go, and then of course Edenderry to the north. I think that it's the joy. Like, Dennis is quite modest in what he does. He travels to Dundalk from where he lives in Kildare as a volunteer for that organisation. What I have said in the past, and I will say it still, is if there are other like organisations in your area, it's better to come together, because you're stronger then when you look for other types of supports, whether it's if you're applying for grants or if you're applying for whatever. It is important that you lobby. You have a lobbying force if you're together. And I know that, while some organisations feel that they're working in isolation, I would say contact Offaly Volunteer Centre, and I'm sure that we could identify similar groups in other parts of the county.
Yeah, and we're seeing that this morning. They're even listening to the CFR groups coming together and collaborating a bit more and sharing that wealth of experience. We've about a minute left here. Have you time to talk about what's in the plan in terms of the year ahead, or you literally give us a couple of quick bullet points?
Oh goodness! No, I have to say the annual report will be available to anybody who wishes to have it. We will be sending it to our partners. We work very closely with Offaly Local Development, with the Public Participation Network, with the HSE, the County Council. We believe that you cannot achieve anything on your own, that you have to collaborate with partners. The National Learning Network, all of that has been absolutely fantastic.
And that's, I think, abundantly clear from this morning, and even by the texts and messages coming in from people there too. And I say one person has asked a question around, funding from central governments and salaries. Well, it'll all be in the annual report there anyway, and that'll be openly available from today. Come down to the keys here and pick up a copy yourself if you want to come in, listener. And so look, that's really it. Time for me to wrap up here from Bury Key, just outside Offaly Volunteer Centre. Thank you to all this morning contributors, and particularly to Deirdre Fox for the brainchild behind this, and for allowing us to come down here and showcase all the great work that's happening happening here in a voluntary capacity around the town and the region. I'm going to hand you back over now because Pete Casey will be in the hot seat for Feel Good Saturday after the news at 11. Thank you all so much and talk to you all next week.
Thanks, Ronan.